Good evening. How are you? Well, we've gotten into the 70s today. um, but we got this beautiful golden light because I've gotten out later than I wanted to. Any of you people out there in Loudoun County, Virginia, look up this guy Segura. He's a nut. He's a right-wing nut. He doesn't think women should have any rights, and it goes on from there. And he's probably got Patrick Henry kids flushed and running around and so forth. But we have a savior there, Russet Perry, and that's who we should vote for. So if you haven't thought about it, vote for her. If you haven't already voted, if you can spare some time, knock doors for her and give her a little money. She's our hope. We don't need another wacko in the state senate. So what's the big story? Obviously, it's the Hill. Now, if you or I are on travel and somehow or other we forget to pay a bill we always pay, but let's make it important, like a mortgage or a rental payment. As soon as we get back, we pay it. How does that compare to what the Congress does? So the Congress is obligated itself to do all these different things and then wants to get out of them prospectively and pay them slowly, if not at all. Like, what should we do with our military? Oh, what should we do with Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid? And what about our foreign entanglements? But for a good reason. Like, what do we do about Ukraine? Are we on the side of Putin and Russia? You don't want to have dinner with that guy. You don't want to drink his tea. And you probably don't want to get on a plane if he's invited you to come somewhere. So, but we have Republicans that are against supporting Ukraine and disengaging and isolating us from what? NATO, which we have obligations with. So what happened? Okay, those are all kind of the issues that have been floating around. But what happened was Democrats supported a bill to kick the can down the road and for 45 days. But they did not provide to cover the funds for Ukraine. And there are certain child payments that we have that we're not going to pay to the disaster of the children. But hey, we already gave up on the children with guns, so what's the big deal if they can eat or sleep or be, food or insecure in other ways? In other words, it's pretty harsh business how we do these things. And it's considered a success that we haven't shut down the government, although we've taken certain funding off the calendar. And here's the rest of it. The rest of the rub is that Gates, who's a maniac as well, they're just populated in the Republican Party. He is going to pull the trigger on a motion to vacate Monday, tomorrow, or in the next several days to throw out the speaker, the Republican speaker, because he made any deal at all, apparently, with Democrats. And he said, they agreed with Democrats. Well, isn't politics about compromise, even if I don't agree with the compromise they make? And how are you to run a government when we're so close in terms of numbers between Republicans and Democrats? So if we don't agree on something, we don't get anything done. And the people's business can't wait upon these people becoming adults instead of children. For the most part, I think the Democrats understand why they're there. And there are some Republicans who understand it too. And there wouldn't have been any bill, any continuing resolution, if some Republicans, in a decent-sized number, didn't vote with the Democrats to move the bill to the Senate so that our government would not shut down. Now, wherever you are on this issue, however you agree or disagree with my on the fly at a walking speed analysis, who do you respect who can't keep their house in order, who can't pay their bills, who can't meet their debts and obligations? None of us, I suspect. But that's exactly the image that we're giving when we don't take care of business, the public's business. don't take care of the general welfare, don't take care of our international allies. By this time, just remembering for a moment that everybody thought at the beginning Putin was going to roll over Ukraine in 3 days and own it. He hasn't. He hasn't, first of all, because of the resolve of the people not to be subject to a foreign government. This is a principle we've accepted all through time. And my friends were critical when I was sounding off with lots of people saying that we should be supporting Ukraine, give them a chance. And we have done that. And at some point, because I think of his foreign relations experience, Biden said we've got to do something about this. This is different than other cases in which people have asked for our support. This is about reviving and strengthening NATO. This is about respecting those who are endangered. This is about dealing with a potentate who kills his enemies and runs ravage over international, national state geography to get what he wants. And that is not something we can accept in this day and age. And we have to do something about it. And we have. The outcome is still in doubt. But this is not like other past wars that have failed. This is not like Iraq. This is not even like Afghanistan. This is serious business. And in play is China, North Korea, and Russia. Against us, perhaps, if we don't show the kind of strength that gives Zelensky and the Ukrainians the possibility of success, which is not unrealistic given what has happened so far, and shows to the world that we're open for business. That is, to be the beacon, some say we are, for those who look for freedom, definitions of it, the fact of it, and who look for support among those who are our allies or whom we've supported to preserve that on a national and international level. So when we have this mess on the Hill, and it's not the first time, and we've lost funds before, and it remains to be seen if in 45 days we can get our congressional act together, we are endangering the strength of our nation the way Italy seemed to me and others after World War II. When they changed their parliamentary government, I don't know, I think it was 40 times, they couldn't get anything done. Is that where we're going? Because that's not acceptable. So what happens if Gates makes his motion to vacate? What should the Democrats do? If it's not happening now, it should be happening. That is, you 25 Republicans, join us, at least in how we run the House. And all bets off on what good seats you can get in the next Congress. But let's do the business of governing now and figure that out later. Because right now, you have a bunch of terrorists running the Republican caucus and thereby compromising the entire Congress and the Senate and our ability to move forward as a nation. It's not acceptable. So maybe it's possible that if Gates brings up such a vote, that McCarthy can become Speaker, or I should say continue to be Speaker, but I have my doubts. Because these people like to break China. That's small c, and they will do just that. So that's one of the things, you know, the notion of us choking on Ukraine, failing to support them at this critical time, the notion of ignoring children, as we seem to do whenever we get close to the Second Amendment. These things are outrageous, and we can't have one joker get rid of the speaker without considering a better alternative than a hair trigger pull on a weapon that would blow up our democracy if we can't act like adults. It's just not acceptable. Now, another thing that's going on, and I don't know how exactly I'd identify it, but it's the Menendez case. Now, I don't know what he did. I read, just like you, all the terrible things that he said, that they say he did, and particularly that his wife led him and her into. And I find it distressing that the government would, in his case, move the case from New Jersey to New York, depriving him, I guess, of a jury of his peers by argument. But also there's law that says if you choose the wrong venue for the case, the conviction, if obtained, can be reversed and sent back to be tried by the right jury in the right jurisdiction. I don't know if the defense will make that motion, but I sure would. The second thing that bothers me is that it seems that conspiracy as charged is not just one conspiracy, because not everybody's involved in the conspiracy. Now, understand me on this. The fact that a person is in a conspiracy means that the players have a certain objective that's all shared by the agreement, and whatever you do in the course of that conspiracy shows you're aware of the entire conspiracy. I suspect that there's a good argument to be made that the government should have indicted on separate conspiracies or felony charges. And then the third point I'd make, and this may sound impossible, but I think it makes a lot of sense in this case. Menendez, perhaps, should be suing for a separate trial for himself from his wife. And at his trial, and I assume he'd be tried first, but maybe not. At his trial, he'd say, I didn't know what you was doing. And that's a defense that's inconsistent with his wife's defense. And they did start with the same singular lawyer. So I think that she might make the same argument about him. And if they're making them at separate trials, that creates some peril for the government and how they succeed. Now, people who know the case better and the facts and who are involved in it, if they hear what I say, they say, oh, that wouldn't work for these 17 reasons. But I just don't see it. I read the indictment, beautifully written, but it strikes me as it's not enough to say because Menendez is involved in all these matters, everybody else is involved in a conspiracy with him. And the indictment is sprinkled powerfully with emails from his wife. So I don't want to cast aspersions on her, but if the objective of a criminal defense is to force the government to prove its case, I'd say that's how I would approach it. Now, I am no less upset about corruption, but I am also no less supportive of full and fair proceedings. We call it due process. That is a process that is fundamentally fair. And I don't think because I support the Just Us Department on one case, I can look the other way if they step away from the values and principles that should reign in our criminal courtrooms. And there's not a suggestion I'm making that runs against those principles, because I think that what's going on in this case is not exactly straight. And you may ask, why did the case end up in New York instead of New Jersey? Well, the local U.S. attorney is involved in part of the case in terms of what it's claimed Menendez wanted to occur. Okay, fine. So have a different lawyer, a different prosecutor, a special prosecutor. Try the case because of that conflict. But you don't move it across town to a place where there's a jury that can't spell Menendez and doesn't know who he is and doesn't begin with whatever it means to be a jury of your peers. I suppose it means your inhabitants of a same or similar place. And I don't think New York would concede they were New Jersey, nor vice versa. So anyhow, those are a couple of extra thoughts that seem somewhat out of the realm of where you may have found me in Trump, but I think they're entirely consistent. In Trump's case, when he makes all these frivolous motions, I'm against them. Here are a couple of motions that strike me as perhaps productive. I'm not on the team. I don't know what they think. There might be very good reasons not to do what I propose, but obviously I wouldn't mention it if I didn't think it had some worth. So here I am on the day after the shutdown did not occur, and we celebrate Jimmy Carter for the final hours he's spending and showing the energy to thank people by appearing in cars with his wife at a birthday celebration yesterday and perhaps something today. And I celebrate the fact that he set aside so much land in Alaska. And I underscore the fact that it matters what a president does, what a nation does that's right, when a man like Trump, when president, could reduce that successful set-aside of all that public land. So for now, I say goodbye to you from my Cathedral of Trees, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.